Today I'm inviting you to join a conversation about investments. And we're going to talk about the role of building relationships, building our communication skills, and having the right mindset in the world of investments. My guest today is the founder and a managing partner of one of the largest and most active VCs in Russia. If you're someone who is interested in how investments work in Russia, or if you're someone who is interested in investing globally or building your career, I hope you're going to learn a lot from this conversation. I'll let my guest introduce himself.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm one of the founders Nauman company, and I was the CEO of this company for 11 years. So I'm an entrepreneur from my nature. Then we started and founded the Internet Initiative Development Fund, and I'm the managing partner of this fund. Thank you for inviting me. I would like to answer your questions. Please.
Yes, and thank you for being here. We're very happy to have you. We had a very interesting conversation when we prepared for this interview, and I think there's so much to learn for everybody. You have a lot to share. And I want to start off by exploring the concept of investing globally and investing locally, since you are the fund that invests in global initiatives. Is that correct?
I would say both. We invest in companies which grow businesses here in Russia and then go globally or go somewhere from the very beginning. The main conception here is not to think like we have some local market and then we have some global market. It's all global actually, but at the same time it's all local. When you think about the future of your product or your services, you have to choose the right market to enter, and it doesn't have to be the local market first and then you go somewhere global. It just has to be best market for your products. For example, I told you this story. We had a company in our portfolio. They were developing this product with the artificial intelligence, which were helping pharmaceutical companies to design new drugs, new formulas.
Okay.
And that's actually a very long process.
A lot of clinical research, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's about 15 or 20 years and billions of dollars to develop a new drug. So they were using artificial intelligence in order to shorten the whole process. Then they were exploring the markets, looking for potential customers.
Did they start here in Russia?
Yeah, they start here in Russia, and they were looking for the customers here in Russia. And then they were surprisingly coming to this conclusion that they have 0 potential customers here, 3 potential customers in Europe, and about 5 to 6 potential customers in the United States. Then the choice was easier. They have to go and sell there, no customers here.
And this is how the strategy is still today, or did they pivot eventually?
No, they actually pivoted. Now they are helping pharmaceutical companies to find new customers with the orphan diseases. So
they changed the strategy completely?
Completely, it's like 180%.
Okay.
And now actually in China.
Oh, and in China, not in the United States anymore.
No, it's like completely different.
And they started with this mindset that we want to explore the local market, right?
Yes.
And this is why you're saying that there is no such thing as local or global.
No, you just have to find the best market for your product, for your solution.
You only invest in companies or startups that sell globally, is that correct?
Last couple years, I would say yes. But previously, we were investing in pretty much everything. Sometimes it makes sense to start with the local market because it's easier to come to your customers, speak the same language, use the same mentality, and try to understand the nature of your product, this problem-solution fit and product-market fit, what they needed. I hope we will come later in our conversation to this, how important it is to have this communication skill with the local language or in our case, English language.
Can you walk us through your investment strategy? Because I had the privilege of working with some Swiss funds and American funds, and Some investors in Asia. From the cultural perspective, it all looks very different. And I think many viewers will be interested in learning, how this works in Russia, because you're very active in Russia. How do you invest? How do you exit? What do you prioritize?
We are what usually called generalist fund, so it means we can invest in any kinds of IT, software, SaaS services.
So you don't have one domain?
No. We do not invest in some areas like gaming, e-commerce, but we do invest in services for the games and for e-commerce. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit complicated, but in general we invest in every industry. Since 2013 we invested 449 companies.
That's a big portfolio.
It's a huge portfolio. Another strange thing I would say is that we are a green fund. It means that we reinvest money we're getting from exits. It's not close-end up fund.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say it's strange?
It's not usual, actually.
It's unusual, right?
No, it's unusual. It's very rare, I would say. It's a couple percent in terms of global VC market.
Do you reinvest all of the money that you get from exits? Is that what you mean?
Yes, most of it. Since we have this huge portfolio, almost 450 companies, and we are this evergreen fund, we have different strategy for investing and exiting.
How many exits have you had since 2013?
A little bit more than 50, it's 52, something like that. We usually invest in the early stages like pre-seed, seed, and Series A. Mm-hmm. So we do follow-on rounds and we help with the acceleration programs on the very early stages like pre-seed and seed. On the other hand, from the exit point of view, actually we pretty recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, developed a strategy for exiting from this portfolio. We divided our portfolio into 3 parts. The best champions, we call them stars, like middle-sized companies and small companies. And we trying to help maximize our profit and size of this best companies, stars. We have about 40 companies there.
40 companies, are they big enterprises or aiming to become big enterprises, those stars?
It depends what you meaning saying big enterprises.
You said the other category is small.
Yeah, I mean, in our small IT world, it's relatively big companies, okay. But comparing to the biggest.
But compared to the other 2 categories.
Yeah, it's biggest companies, and some of them are local, some of them are global. But most are the global companies. They are selling products everywhere in the world. And there is a mid-size portfolio with about 50 companies in it. And usually it's some kind of niche champions or companies with a very good technology behind, but not really successful in terms of market developing. And there is small companies which performing, we still do not expect much of these companies. So we decided to sell this medium part of our portfolio because it's better for us to reinvest this money because we are evergreen fund, hoping we're gonna catch these biggest guys in our next investments.
So you sell the middle category to invest in potential stars?
Yes.
What do you do with the last category? It's probably the largest too.
You mean this 120 companies? Pretty much nothing. We help them when they need it, when they ask us to help, but we don't spend an active time and active attention to try to push them. No, we don't.
Is that the answer to the question how you manage your huge portfolio?
That's the usual strategy, to pay more attention to your winners. But usually people do not sell this middle-sized portfolio because it's usually like a close-up fund, and usually your strategy to maximize pretty much everything in your portfolio.
Yeah.
But in our case, it's better to sell these companies right now to reinvest this money.
And that's how you do it differently, because as you said,
That's the difference, yes.
most funds probably have a portfolio of 15 companies, but they want to nurture and take care of each,
Yes,
and that takes a huge amount of effort.
That's true, because usually in your life cycle, like 10 years, you don't have time to reinvest this money. Because, like, let's imagine you stayed in a company for 5 to 6 years, and then if you invest again, you'll be out of time to exit from this company.
Do you know any other VCs or funds in Russia that do the same, that reinvest?
No, I don't.
How did you come up with this strategy, and when did it occur to you?
We just were thinking about how to improve our processes in managing portfolio. Actually, I've got this idea from Kaufman Fellows. You know this story.
You're a Kaufman Fellow, right?
Yeah. We had one of the modules about managing portfolio. There were like different aspects of this, and I was thinking we should do something better with our portfolio. So that's how we come up with that idea.
Is there anything else that you learned, let's say, in the Kaufman Fellowship program or anywhere else about the investor's mindset? Because mindset is probably going to be the core topic of this interview. The mindset that investors share, particularly investors in Russia, and how their mindset is different from the mindset of investors who live outside of Russia, the US, China, other parts of the world.
You know, it's really interesting question, because mindset of the investors everywhere in the world is pretty much the same. It's really the same mindset globally.
So there is nothing that distinguishes the Russian investors, like nothing specific.
You know, there's like tiny differences depending on your investment thesis of your fund, how you invest, in which size companies, what is your investment strategy, how you exit. But for example, if we are considering the US market, there's a lot of money, but on the other hand, you have to grow really, really fast. All investors are looking for the best opportunities and ready to pay whatever it costs. It's super competitive, and most of the investors are looking for like unicorns. If we are trying to copy that model in the Russian market or any other markets, most of the other markets, it doesn't work actually. In most of the cases, you have to invest in a company which will like be trying to get some profit. But in the United States, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is just grow in terms of volume, customers, and the profit maybe will come later, but
so the math is simple.
Yeah, but a lot of people do not pay attention to it on the very early stages. That's why we hear some stories like WeWork, which was complete nonsense from the very beginning. There were like no unit economics in this, but nobody paid attention to it.
But they were growing aggressively.
Well, that's what I'm actually telling you, that
they were hiring lots of people all over the world.
I heard a lot of stories after that like a lot of people saying, we have to, all of the people who were investing in this WeWork company have to be like fired from their investment fund. It's nonsense.
Really? To the degree where they have to be fired? Wow. As an investor, you want good returns, right, everywhere in the world, and you're looking for the best startup that will become a unicorn potentially, right? Is that what you mean? So there are no cultural differences we could think of. I think you mean that there is way more competition in the US than in Russia.
Mindset is the same, but you are looking for the best team, good product, and a big enough market. That's it. Nothing else.
How about startups then? There are a lot of talented people in Russia, in the CIS countries, who want to bring their solutions to the other parts of the world. You have a lot of experience with startups who want to go global. What are the major mindset roadblocks have you seen in founders and in teams, let's say, who are here in Russia and they want to sell their product globally?
If we are speaking from the very beginning, people who wanted to start and who just wanted to be entrepreneur, one of the biggest mistakes they are making is they are waiting for the big idea, brilliant idea, which will right away will help them become big and earn the world, like become the champions.
Is it the universal thinking, or is
it's global. It's everywhere. It's not only
it's not only in Russia.
Not only in Russia, but in Russia it's even worse.
Okay. In what way?
In trying to waiting and sitting and waiting for your big idea. The problem is that most of the ideas not coming in this final brilliant way from the very beginning. You just have to start working on any of your ideas, and then you make first steps and you change your idea. You are looking for new customers, probably you'll change your product, and sometimes we see, I told you the story, they pivoted for 180%, so it's totally different direction. And it's okay, but you just have to start immediately, the same very day you got the idea. And that's really important skill, which stop a lot of people from being entrepreneur.
So you mean they dream too much and they take little action? Or they just wait for a good enough idea?
Yeah, first, I would say first was a little bit rude.
Okay, all right.
But no, you just I'm waiting for the big idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like you're already working, you are waiting, but actually it's not. And if you have the idea and you didn't start working with that idea, it means that somebody else who have the same idea probably already started, and he's ahead of you.
Just the other day I was reading the quote from Henry Ford, and Henry Ford said, "Good ideas without execution are hallucinations."
That's very true. I totally agree. Okay, another problem is thinking local. Some people are thinking, okay, I'll start here, then I probably go somewhere else. But the problem is markets are different, and yes, you can start here and you probably will find some market for your product. It probably would be different market, different solution, because I mentioned that sometimes there is no market in the local country for your idea. It means that from the very beginning, you have to think globally. It may be Brazil, China, India, whatever, but you have to think globally from the very beginning. Actually, it doesn't matter which market you start to explore, Russian, American, Brazil, whatever. It requires the same amount of effort, and in most cases almost the same amount of money. Okay, here is cheaper, but from the effort and time perspective, it's the same. It's exactly the same amount of time and effort required from the founder. So let's say it required him 5 to 6 years to get some success on the market. You can spend it here or you can spend it somewhere else. But if here is not the ideal market for you, there is no glue to start here.
But basically, a lot of people start and they spend 5 or 6 years trying to succeed, and then they simply get tired because they realize that if they go to another market now, they will need again 5 or 6 years to start from scratch.
And the problem is when they got successful on the local market, then it's impossible to push them somewhere else.
They're content with what they have?
Yeah, but this success is really small, but it's still success, and it's really hard to do it again.
It requires too much effort.
Yeah.
The person is not ready for the same amount of effort. Is that what you mean?
Sometimes, actually in most cases, it makes sense to start here, just to test your product, to try to find the product market fit, problem solution fit, especially in areas like B2B. But in most cases, you have to think global from the very beginning. It's okay if you start here, you test it, and then you go globally immediately. And the third problem or obstacle, people still trying to create the best product, products.
The perfect products. You mean.
Perfect products, yes.
Before they talk to customers, yes.
Before they talk to customers, yes. And they're spending too much time and money and effort creating the perfect products.
It's also universal. It doesn't apply to one culture.
I would say yes, but again, in Russia it's worse. People here is brilliant software engineers, and sometimes it's really require to move from your zone of comfort to come to the customers and talk to them.
Oh, you mean they don't realize that they actually have to talk to people before they ship the work. And you mentioned earlier this concept of the mindset of a Soviet engineer.
That's it. So I mean,
can you explain to people who don't know who a Soviet engineer is?
I already did.
Why Soviet engineers? What were they famous for?
Good engineering.
Okay. Not good, perfect. More than just good, right?
Okay, so but zero marketing and sales skills.
Experience. Oh, I see.
Experience and sales.
I actually have a similar story. I have a friend, he's Italian. He founded an IT company, and he said they struggled getting their first funds from Italian investors because he was a perfect visionary and software engineer, and his partner was a CTO as well, and they came with this brilliant idea to their investors, and they said, that looks like a great solution, but who's going to sell that? You guys have no experience. They didn't get their first money.
So they were experienced, investors.
Yeah, he's like, who's going to sell that idea?
They were good.
They didn't get their first money, so they had to actually go talk to customers and learn to sell it at least to one person. And when they learned how to sell it and who would buy that, then they went to the investors again, and this is when
that's exactly what we do.
Yeah. So universal mindset, as you said, it works everywhere. How about language skills, communication skills? I honestly see a lot of Russian teams and Russian startups who seems to be delusional about the importance of communication skills, because when I ask them, where are you going to sell that? They say, well, in the United States, there's a huge market for it. And when I ask them who's going to sell that, they say, well, we're going to hire some local guys in America. And none of the founders speak English. That's strange to me. Have you heard those stories as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories like that on the market. But the huge problem here, when you are a startup, you are on the early stage and you are looking for problem-solution fit. It means you're trying to find problems within customer processes, or if it's a B2C product, you're trying to find what people want. You have to talk a lot with people, trying to find these problems. Sometimes you have to adjust your product and change it very fast and very dramatically. And you have to take these decisions right away. You have to have this power to make these decisions. It cannot be some hired salesperson.
Yeah.
It will not give you good enough feedback, because you have to ask right questions right away when you are talking to the customer.
You have to be very good at reading people.
Yes, but also you have to be very creative, trying to find your niche, your solution, your product. If you have this problem-solution fit, then you have to find your product market fit. And that again requires from you a lot of communication skills and understanding of your market. How much people are ready to pay for your products? If you change it a little bit, are they ready to pay more? That's really important, really crucial to talk to your customers. Yes, if you have the established product, yes, you can hire someone to sell it. And even in this case, you probably have to adjust your product for certain markets.
That is the founder and the core team who has to do all this communication work. You cannot delegate it to anybody.
No, you cannot.
And if you don't speak their language, I don't know how it can be done. I honestly don't know. Do you know anybody who succeeded on a global market or somewhere in the US without speaking English?
No, I don't. No,
I also don't know.
I know some guys, they hired a salesperson, but they already had this established product. It was easy to sell.
Do you also see communication problems in our first language? Do startups also have some communication problems when it comes to communicating their ideas, their needs, their wants, even in their first language in Russia?
Yes, of course.
What's the major problem? What's the major communication issue in any language, even in our first language?
Talk to your customers. Whatever you do, first go and talk to your customers.
This is what so many refuse to do?
Yes, we have the statistics. And what is the reasons for startups to fail? Have you ever looked at these statistics? So
the statistics say that 90% of all startups fail.
No. I mean,
but why?
Why did they fail? If you look at these statistics, so they say like run out of the money, so broke up team.
Yeah.
But
wrong product.
But this is all bullshit.
What is the true?
The true, they didn't find product market fit. It means that they did not succeeded in the customer development, in trying to find the right niche for the right money. That's it.
So they don't talk to their customer. And again, we're going back to the reason why they don't do that is that because they're too focused on creating the perfect product?
Yes, that's connected, but sometimes it requires like courage to talk to customers. And that's what we are teaching in our acceleration programs, to go and talk to your customers. We developed this methodology of customer development. We teach them how to create these questionnaires. Because, it's uneasy to talk to customers because sometimes they lie to you.
That's true.
And you have to ask the right questions. You want to know the pains of the customers. People naturally refuse to say, they say like, I'm okay, we have very effective processes here. No problems in our processes. But you are looking for some problems. You want to solve these problems and take some money from your customers. And that requires some methodology.
It's not always that people lie, but they don't tell you the whole truth.
Okay, we can say
I think
that.
the reason they don't do that is that there is not enough trust. I once listened to a coach who was explaining the methodology of asking the right questions. He said that there is one powerful question that's more powerful than anything else. The question is, what else? He said, okay, you talk to your customers and then you ask, what else? And they give you an answer and you ask, good, what else? But he says, in order to be able to ask this question and to get people to answer this question, you need to have a solid foundation made of trust. If there's no trust, meaning if you can't build this communication process the right way, people will be annoyed at this question instead of trying to help you, instead of answering.
Actually, that's one of the techniques we are teaching, a lot of them in our acceleration program. I told you the story about another startups, and sometimes we tell our startups to raise the prices. So that's one of the techniques. You double or triple your prices, and sometimes people just ready to pay these prices, but sometimes you hear feedback. Sometimes it's quite negative feedback, but somewhere in the middle you can catch some very useful ideas for you. So like, your creepy product doesn't cost so much money, but if you do this, I probably would consider to pay you twice, like you asked. You then can dig deeper and ask, what do you mean? So what is that like? And that's, as I told you, one of the techniques. You can use all of them, like asking the right questions, so triggering the customers, many others. A/B testing, that's a lot of them.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit more about your acceleration program? Do we have many in Russia?
There is plenty of them, actually. Somebody did research a few months ago, and they counted more than 300 acceleration programs in Russia.
I think yours is ranked pretty high, right? Why do you think it's a good one? And why do you you require some startups to go through your acceleration program before you invest?
Actually, I think we invented the acceleration program for Russia. Because
so you were the first.
I wouldn't say we were the first, but when we started in 2013, there were a few acceleration programs having about 20 companies a year, maybe 50 companies a year. But we created an acceleration program which ran about 7,000 teams a year.
Okay. And they're all from Russia, these teams?
Yes.
So we have this many startups?
We were surprised with that because previously when we started, there were about 500 startups a year in Russia. But after like 1 year in 2014, only through our acceleration program, we have 7,000 teams coming.
Yeah, well, it means there's a lot more because not all of them go to this acceleration.
Most of them.
Wow, but there's still more. I'm surprised, honestly.
At that time, we counted about 10,000 teams a year. So
across Russia.
Across Russia, so we had 7,000 through acceleration, about 1.5 just through
and how many of
other
them
activities.
Are from major cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg?
Most of them, actually.
Most of them.
Yes, Moscow, it's about 50% of our market, and St. Petersburg, it's about 15, and there is a few cities.
That sounds like a lot. It sounds like Moscow is the city of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's almost 50% from here.
Okay.
And when we started, we tried to create the best acceleration program for Russian market. We've been looking through programs in the United States, in Germany, in Israel, and realized that none of them is good for Russia because startups and ecosystems, markets are different in those countries. We had to teach much more our founders, first of all, these entrepreneurial skills, how to talk to customers, how to do this customer development.
Soft skills, pretty much.
A lot of stuff, actually. And that's how we designed quite different program from what they usually have in the United States.
So does it focus heavily on soft skills, or?
I wouldn't say it focus on soft skills, but we have this huge educational part in our acceleration program because in the United States, they usually don't have it. They have some connections. They help you with packaging your product. And
when you say educational, do you mean like you teach them the legal stuff, or what do you mean?
Including this, how to hire people, how to develop your sales. I don't know, how to do online marketing, everything.
Do you teach them to pitch?
Of course.
I had a few interesting conversations. I was visiting a lot of startup hubs, right, in Estonia, in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, where else? Germany, Switzerland. I literally was on campus there, talking to startups. And I was inquiring about their educational program, about their acceleration program, because we were considering some collaboration opportunities, and they said, we are looking for a pitch coach. Can you help and teach our teams? None of them were happy with the existing curriculum. They said, we have a 3-hour session in our program that teaches startups to pitch. But none of them were happy with this solution. However, they're also not ready to spend more time. They think that pitching is something that startups are supposed to figure out on their own. We should give them the structure of a good pitch. We should give them the platform where they can practice, but then they're on their own. Basically, we need to give them tools, but how they use those tools and what they do is not really our job. Startups need to invest in this themselves.
That's very usual, but we design it very different way.
Yeah, but I see startups are struggling. They really don't understand why their pitch doesn't work.
That's exactly why we design it very different way. I told you.
Okay.
Let's take our 3 months acceleration program. We have about 120 master classes during these 90 days.
And are they in English or in Russian? Because that's another challenge.
Most of them in Russian. Actually, it's forbidden for startups to visit more than 40% of these master classes, because otherwise they will only studying, not doing the business.
Okay.
On the other hand, we have a lot of other mechanics, like we have these guys, we call them tracker. It's some kind of coach who actively pushing startups through our processes.
Do they get feedback? Because what I see is that there's 1 3-hour session and you're done, but there needs to be this feedback.
No, we have this very, very sophisticated, technically organized. I mean, every Saturday they have traction meetings. Usually they are telling what the plans for the next week, and they were explaining what they did last week. They creating ideas, then they test it, and then they deliver the results in 1 week. They work with these hypotheses on the weekly basis, and they have to deliver the result at the end of the week. And they're getting used to it. I mean, even after they're finishing this acceleration program, they're still working with the same methodology on their projects. Because we designed this quite differently, this methodology in Russia, much more widely spread. That's why those people counted more than 300 acceleration programs, because these acceleration programs used not only for like real startups, but sometimes for some social projects, any other ideas. You can go through this acceleration program and get some useful results.
Can you share an example or maybe a story of a company that went through your acceleration program and what they learned or what happened? Maybe something memorable?
Yeah, I told you this story about one of the company. I even can say a name, it's FlowWow.
FlowWow.
Yeah, actually that's a very interesting story. These guys came to us with a previous idea and we invested that idea and they failed. 1 year later, they come with some new idea, so we invested again, and they again went to acceleration program, second time actually. Those guys were selling flowers online, so they like using small shops, taking from them these flowers and selling them online. And the business model, they were taking 10% commission on these sales. Sounds easy, but really hard to perform, you know. The problem was they had not enough this unit economics. They were taking 10%, average price was 3,000 rubles, so they were having 300 rubles. And that's what we call doshirak economics.
Because the cost of a customer was also around the same.
Yeah, because they were, cost of customer acquisition was pretty much the same they were having on.
And the margin is so thin that you can barely afford the cheapest meal you can have. That's what this word means.
Yes, in our acceleration program, our guys were telling them, why don't you increase your commission up to 20%? And the guy who were in charge, founder, he was telling, you know guys, mission of my company, I want that women have more flowers. So I don't want to increase prices for my. Okay, finally they took 10% of their partners' network and told them they have to pay more.
They tested it with the first 10% of the partners.
Yes.
Okay.
They predicted that 50% will reject to pay 20%, but actually about 25% rejected, maybe even less, about 20. And after 2 or 3 months, they recreated the whole partner network with the different margin on commission.
So basically they replaced everyone who refused with more partners who said yes, who was ready to pay this commission.
Yes. So now for the same flowers, they were getting 600 rubles. So they can afford much more channels, much more expensive channels. They can pay more to acquire new customer.
It's important for the founder too that his mission didn't suffer. The price for the end consumer didn't change either.
No. So he finally accomplished his mission. So now they're really big. I mean, they're selling for billions of rubles.
And not
year.
only in Russia, right? There's somewhere else.
No, not only in Russia, in some other countries.
What would you call this mentality? Is this fear of making mistakes? Is this fear of novelty that stops people from trying new things or from following some advice?
I don't know. I wouldn't say so.
What is it?
I think we're teaching these people to not talk about failures. Of course, you don't have to be afraid of failures when we are talking about startups.
Oh, that's big. The topic of startups and failures.
Yeah, but we teach them, guys, you have to think in terms of hypotheses. So what is the problem with one of the hypotheses failed? Or another, maybe another 10. It's not a problem. It's not the failure for the whole business. But if you fail to get enough money to support the growth of your business, that's the problem. That's the failure. You have to change your mindset in terms of do not thinking of failures, but thinking of testing hypotheses.
I'm testing a hypothesis.
It's not like I'll fail. No, you just tested your hypothesis.
And then you can change the course.
Yes.
Because this one didn't work.
That's the basic idea.
How about failures when it comes to investors? What are the biggest failures for investors? They must be universal too.
I didn't hear actually much from other investors, but we discovered for ourselves in our processes that we have two types of mistakes in our investment processes. One is when we invest in a company and it didn't succeed. Mm-hmm. And the second type of mistake when we did not invest and the company succeeded. And the second type of mistake, it's 11 times more expensive than the first one. It's also required to change mentality, because when you are looking to the company, you are trying to think what the problems they probably might have in the future. You're thinking about risks, risks mitigation. But you have to change it quite significantly, because you have to think about opportunities. And yes, you have to think about those risks, but you have to think, can we go through this? Can we help them with potential risks? But first you have to consider opportunity. And if the opportunity is big enough and risks are medium, you have to invest in that company.
Is that what explains why you have so many companies in your portfolio?
Yes. And that's actually totally different.
It's
totally different mindset.
Yeah. And then you told me that you don't really have a huge team to manage all of them. You focus on the stars only.
Yeah, I think in our investment department it's about 30 people.
30 people, and they manage to take care of the entire portfolio, right?
Yeah, that's true. Including lawyers. Usually investment funds don't employ lawyers, they hire them for deals.
So you have in-house lawyers?
Yeah, because we have so much deals coming through each year. It's not like you are investing once and that's it. You have to reshape the company once or like sometimes two times years, because new investors coming and you have to think how the company will structure.
And the due diligence, I can imagine, is also a pretty complicated process, just like with any VC. Do you have a lot of requests? Is your inbox inflated with requests from startups who want you to consider their ideas?
No, actually not. We have the whole processes organized. When you investing 75 companies a year, you cannot do it through your email.
Maybe I asked the wrong question. What I really wanted to ask is, how do you find your deals? Is that you're looking at what startups have to offer, you're looking at the incoming requests, or you're actively looking for good opportunities yourselves?
You know, it's a lot of sources. I would say 10 or 15. In most cases, we are actively looking for new startups. Word of mouth, events, some others.
Mm-hmm. Not one source, yeah.
No, it's not one source.
Coming back to mindset, do you think it's important to teach this to kids? Because nowadays, even if we take just Moscow, just the city, I'm sure there are more in New York and other places in the world, there are so many entrepreneurial boot camps for kids that claim that they can teach kids to be financially independent and think like entrepreneurs and think in terms of creating their own company in the future. Is it important to teach those entrepreneurial skills early on?
Yeah, I think yes. The short answer is yes. I think it's actually different being financially independent and have the entrepreneurial mindset. I think that's the different parts, I think.
Yeah, I looked at the curriculum of some schools that offer that, and
you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to scratch your mind. I mean, with some things you probably might like as a parent.
Yeah.
So
we do this and this and this.
Having a financially independent child, that's good. I'll send him.
I think the thinking process is your kid will be confident enough to start a business, and through this he will become financially independent. I think that's the logic here. But
that's actually not true.
Yes.
I think. But I answered yes, and I'll explain why. I mentioned already that it's really important to teach kids this entrepreneurial mindset. First of all, it's to start immediately, right away, when you have the idea. I mean, not to wait the biggest ideas. I've seen a lot of serial entrepreneurs. They started their first idea at the age of 14. And I mean, to the age of 20, they probably already failed 3 or 4 businesses. Some of them succeeded. But it's nice to fail early. We teach our startups fail fast. It's nice if people have this mindset that they can execute immediately after they have the idea.
So you mean we need to teach them the immediacy of taking action?
Yes, that's true. You don't have to spend all of your money for this new idea. You just have to take the first step. I love this example about building a nuclear submarine. If you've got the idea, yeah, I have to build a nuclear submarine, but I have no idea how to do it. You don't have to invest all of your money or all of your effort in this big task. But you can plan the first step to buy a book, how to build a nuclear submarine. That's enough.
Maybe you will find step 2 in the book.
Probably, but maybe while you're reading the book, you will realize that you probably wanted to build something else.
Yes, that can also happen.
And that's good enough.
Yes, that's a good lesson already. I agree with you. This mentality that we spoke about earlier, sitting there and waiting for a big idea to come, it's like counting on somebody or relying on somebody or some other force, most likely external force, that will help you come up with this good idea. We probably should teach them to rely on themselves, because when big ideas come, it's always inspiration. They don't come because you apply too much intellectual effort, right? The big ideas.
That's another very interesting issue, inspiration, how to get it.
But when you get it, you need to take action immediately. That's my point.
Yeah, but how to get it? It's another very big issue. And in this, you have to learn how to tell yourself the truth.
Yeah, to be honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself. And
can you give an example? That's interesting.
That's very interesting, because we all, like human beings, teach to lie ourselves. Television teaches, internet teachers, and even our parents lied to us. They were saying like, oh, you are the most beautiful kid in the world. You are not. But who's gonna say your kid this?
Yes.
And we get used to this. We have it in our mind. And that leads us to misunderstanding of what we really want. You have to be honest with yourself. What do you really want? What do you really want to do? What do you really want to earn? Do you need this house or do you need this car because you want it, or just somebody else want it, or they show it to you on TV? Do you really want it?
A lot of people don't really know what they want, and a lot of people feel ashamed about what they really want. Like if they really want a lot of money, they feel like they say it's not really good to want that.
That's another issue. I mean, you have to tell yourself the truth, and you don't have to be ashamed if you want big money. You don't have to tell anybody. But you have
At least you have to be honest with yourself,
yes,
right?
that's my point. You have to be honest with yourself.
You don't have to post it on Facebook, right?
No, you don't have to. You may want strange things,
Yes.
and you don't have to tell it to other people, but you have to be honest with yourself.
This honesty, can we teach it to children?
I think so. Be honest with yourself on certain age, not when they're really young. They have to be.
They have to be loved.
Yeah, they have to be loved, treated with love.
All the time. Yeah.
But then they grow up, so we have to teach them.
You're basically saying that we need to teach kids 2 things: the immediacy of taking action when they get inspired by a good idea, and 2, being able to perceive reality as it is.
Yeah, I would start with the second one, with getting the reality and then taking the actions.
Okay. Yeah, that's really important. That requires us adults to be honest with ourselves in the first place, and then being honest with them.
That's very hard to do.
I know. You can't teach us in any acceleration program, I think.
It's very hard to be honest with yourself. It's really hard to do for a lot of people.
Really hard, but it's a life-changing skill, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I
Thank
really
you
enjoyed
for inviting me.
Yes, I'm really enjoyed
really
it,
nice.
and I hope you guys learned something from this. And I hope we all can learn something from being honest with ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.